Hello and welcome again to another episode of One Starfish, where our mission is to help change the world one starfish or one person at a time. As always, guys, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share, all the things. I'm really excited for our guest today. This is a really good friend of mine. Tom and I have been friends for a few years through Arate. He's always there for me. Just really excited to be going through this. One of the best guys I know. He's in a niche marketing, a recruitment place called medical science liaisons is the type. He'll correct me if I'm wrong on some of this. He's been in this industry for 25 years. He has a very niche podcast on this too, so make sure to check that out. We'll have that links in our show notes. He's also a coach. He's an author. He's in real estate investment. He's in all kinds of different stuff. Also father, also a husband, doing all the things. So really welcome to the show, Tom.
I love it. I am so excited to be here, and I'm so grateful that you invited me. And guys, for anyone listening, like the line behind the Angela Bradford fan club starts behind me. Okay. I am the biggest fan of this woman. And I'm so grateful that we get this chance to do this together.
Me too. So let's dig into stuff. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a very successful business. You've been running it for a while. What are some things that you had to overcome to get where you're at? You talked about being really niche. That was the big thing, just before we got on air. So tell us a little bit of what do you think your success tips kind of are?
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny, after almost 25 years being in business, there's been so many ups and downs. There have been so many lessons. So I think that the most obvious answer to me is overcoming the uncertainty of being a business owner and not having I don't have any partners. So not having partners was, or I didn't even have any experience in this industry. I literally taught myself from scratch and just figured out how to do this. So, I've kind of, it's been one of those things, like it took me 25 years to become an overnight success. Like it was the type of thing where it was a slow roll, and I think that the biggest hurdle that I had to overcome was the experience of knowing how to run a successful business, grow a successful business, hire the right people, and focus on the right things. And I'll be honest with you, I tried to do too much on my own. And maybe that was because when I got into business, I was young and I had a big ego and I thought I knew everything. And the success really compounded once I asked for help and started to talk to others and hire coaches and got into Arate. Well, that was much later, but like before that, there were a lot of instrumental people and leaders that showed me, hey, you may want to consider this, or you may want to do that. How about these tools? How about this idea? Being able to rely on others that have gone before me and found success has made a huge, huge difference.
That's cool. So let's go back 25 years. What even got you into this niche market? Like, where did that come from?
It's such a crazy story, but what happened was, and I'll give you the short version, but I was a pharmaceutical sales rep.
Okay.
And I loved my job. I was doing really well, but there's a very apparent ceiling in that business. And my son was born. My wife was working at the time, and she decided that she wanted to raise the kids, and she was going to leave her job. And now I'm like, wow, I have to kind of figure out a side gig, or we got to figure something out. And I'll tell you, the Lord works in mysterious ways, because I was a little freaked out at the time, thinking, well, I got to really do something drastic to be able to afford. Live in North Jersey, taxes are crazy, a nice house, the whole deal. So within like a couple of weeks of that conversation, I ran into this dude at the gym, and we were struck up a conversation. He had a brand new business in recruiting. It was on the technology IT side. And he just like one day just said, hey, we're looking for somebody to help us with sales and marketing. Would you be interested in maybe consulting for us? And I was like, literally, it was like I was struck by lightning, because that was like God's way of saying, hey, here's an opportunity for you. And Angela, I literally was all in.
Mm.
And I did that on the side while I was still doing my pharma thing, learn the recruiting business from the IT side, and it really blew up. Fast forward, 9/11 happened, and things fell apart in the Wall Street financial technology sector, which is where we focused mostly.
Okay.
So the company was kind of starting from scratch. And at that time, I was like, I can either stay here and rebuild it with these guys, or I could start my own firm and maybe focus on the pharmaceutical industry, because that's what my background was.
Right.
And that's what I did. I took a chance and I started a pharma search firm. And like my first client was Bristol Myers Squibb, huge pharmaceutical company. They're giving me a ton of work. And they asked me one day, do you recruit for medical science liaisons? I didn't even know what it was. I couldn't spell liaison. Of course, I said yes. I'm like, yeah, of course we do.
For everybody. What do you?
Right? Well, sure enough, that one answer to that one question changed the whole course of my business, because we became specialized in the go-to firm for recruiting medical science liaisons, which then later led to me starting this podcast, which blew up because I hit it right. It was March of 2020, which was when COVID hit. And then 4 years later, 200 episodes. I have 400,000 unique downloads in over 90 countries. So it's been a huge asset for me. And that's kind of how it evolved.
That's so cool. So you got into medical science liaison. What is a medical science liaison?
That's a great question. And, it's actually kind of easy it's hard to conceptualize when you just hear the term, like, what even is that? But I'll explain it so easily. Everyone knows what a pharmaceutical sales rep is.
Yeah.
So when I was a pharma rep, I had a territory and I would go out and promote the use of certain drugs, pharmaceutical products, whatever. You go out with your 4-color glossy and you sell the features and benefits of the product, and you leave samples, and the doctor gives you a signature, and then he starts prescribing your drug. So that's the nature of what a pharmaceutical sales rep does. Well, when I was a rep, we used to schmooze doctors and send them on vacations and buy them fancy, right, dinners and whatever, right? The FDA came in about maybe 20 years ago, and they said, no, you can't do that anymore. Okay. Came up with these laws called the Sunshine Act, where pharmaceutical companies can't pay what they call key opinion leaders to prescribe or to influence them on prescribing their drugs. So pharma companies said, well, how are we going to get our message out there aside from schmoozing and having sales reps? So the medical science liaison position was created as a scientific expert on the research and data behind the drug. So these individuals have doctorate degrees, MDs, PharmDs, PhDs that are really educated in the science. And they go out very similar to a pharmaceutical sales rep, but they're non-promotional. They just talk about science. And then they leave it up to the physician to make their decision on what they want to do. And that became this whole secondary. So there's sales on the commercial side, and then there's medical affairs, which has the medical science liaisons out there talking about science, not promoting anything. And that's what we do, is we help companies build out those medical science liaison teams and find those people.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's simple. Really educated people that explain the science behind a drug. It's like, okay.
You're like an expert. You should have answered that question for me. I'm too long-winded.
I had to hear the whole answer. Oh, man, that's awesome. So, I mean, obviously, they're, like you said, 25 years to an overnight success. So you started in this industry, 25 years ago and stuff. When did you actually start to see success? And what were some of the tangible things that you would say that you did or didn't do that helped you get to that level?
Yeah. So I will say, and I don't mean this to sound arrogant, but I really found success overnight. Like I said, I landed my first client was Bristol Myers Squibb, huge client. And that really catapulted the business. But to answer your question, I think the key to our success is, and I think that this is key to any company, is you really have to have a good sales presence. Like I have the foundation of, I'm a sales guy. I graduated from Rutgers University. My first job out of school was a sales job. And I wasn't just a business owner, entrepreneur. I was a sales guy first.
Mhm.
And I focused all my efforts on getting clients to build the revenue to be able to then start to grow the business. So sales first, relationships, focus on relationships and the importance of developing strong relationships with your clients and get a level of trust and loyalty is so important in a business. And then it really became about people. Like my business, as much as I want to be like, oh yeah, it's Tom Caravela owns this business. This isn't Tom Caravela. This is the people that make this company special. We're not a huge company, but we're very, very select at how we do business and who is in our business. And that's made all the difference.
That's cool. So get good at sales if you're listening to this. And a lot of people are like, oh, that sales, that dirty word. It's not a dirty word. That's how you help more people. So get good at sales. That's a good key right there. And then
Amen.
as you got into that, obviously got into personal development at some point. Has that always been a big part of your life? Or was that something that came in kind of later?
It's always been a big part of my life. I remember when I was my literally like my first job out of college, I was selling HMO plans. I was selling HMO plans before anybody knew what an HMO was. They're like, "What do you mean I have to switch my doctor?" Like nobody wanted this thing, but it really taught me how to sell. And back then, I just remember listening to Zig Ziglar tapes in my car, like literally cassette tapes of Zig Ziglar over and over to learn sales principles and, Dale Carnegie. And I'm not a big reader, I'm more of an audio guy.
Mhm.
So I would just like listen to these guys. And that's how I developed this love for personal growth and development and eventually found Arte. And so all along, I've really been a student of peak performance and personal growth.
So where do you think that came from, Tom? Like, was your parents that way, or you just got out of high school and college, you said, and kind of got into this? That's unusual, and to take the rejection at that age is unusual. So, was that just in your DNA? We're just talking to someone else about this today, actually. Like, was it something your parents were entrepreneurs at all, or not at all?
Not at all. My parents um neither of my parents went to college. My father was a mechanic for 40 years, never went to school. My mother never went to college. They both did very well as far
Mhm.
as like they always had jobs and they provided for us. And
Hard
like
working.
we weren't poor, but we weren't rich either. Like
Mhm.
I didn't know where we were because I was just like, yeah, I got what I need,
You got
got
food.
my fancy sneakers, and I grew up in the 80s. So like as long as I had my parachute pants, I was fine. I was good to go. Um, but to answer your question, like where did it come from? I could tell you I am super, super competitive. Like like I hate to lose. And I was an athlete from a very young age. So played sports my whole life, wrestled in college, and being a part of athletics and being competitive and knowing what it feels like to win and how much I hated to lose, that got into my soul. And I think that was the drive behind the need to grow.
That makes sense. And did your family, like when you got into sales and stuff, because like I said, sales can kind of be a dirty word in some circles, which is interesting, but that's a whole different topic. But like when you got into that, did your family support you, or they were like, go get like a job like your dad had or your mom had? that, has a good 401k and da 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 da, whatever, is in the States.
Yeah,
All the stuff.
I have to say I'm so blessed because my parents were so supportive of
Mm,
me and my brother and my sister, and they encouraged us and they motivated us to try to be the best that we possibly can. Like my mother wanted me and my brother to be like a doctor or a lawyer. Like that was the thing. Like
right.
she really tried hard to get us to be uber professionals at the top of your game, kind of, so to
Hmm.
speak.
Hmm.
But never was anyone like, you need to be a business owner. You need to be an entrepreneur. That never came into the equation. It was always, you need to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Right.
And that wasn't really my calling. I went to college. I went to Rutgers University, and I was a communications major, and I kind of had this idea that I was going to get into sales or marketing and go work at a company and make a bunch of money and do really well and compete and then see where that took me. And it kind of was the way it happened, and my parents were there the whole time, kind of rooting me on.
That's cool. They did that. So then you got into that. What are some of the main challenges, like in the last little while, since maybe even since COVID, I don't know, that you've had to overcome and like that you see people maybe struggling with? Like, kind of listen to your story. It's kind of like what I hear, and I know this isn't the case. That's what I'm trying to dig. It's kind of like something just fell into place, which they did. But what were some of the things that you did overcome? Tell us about some of the hard days, even if it's back to when you first started in sales, and what got you through those days when you did want to quit?
Yeah. Well, faith over everything. I think that if I'm a person of faith, and there are things that happen in business that you don't understand that aren't fair. I was named in a lawsuit I had nothing to do with any of what was being said, but I was affiliated in the course of the business dealings, and I got thrown into it. And it was a major, major lawsuit that I could have really gotten hurt. Um, and I just relied on my faith and just put it in God's hands and said, hey, you know what? I don't know. I didn't expect this. I don't know how to deal with this. I'll go get a lawyer and I'm just going to trust that it works out. And it did. It all worked out. But I had someone try to intercept invoices I got hacked
Mm,
and had somebody intercept invoices that were going out to my clients and try to redirect the payments to a new account. So I dealt with this cyber hacking situation that almost cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. Again, you wake up some days and you're under attack. You're under attack by bad actors, and even market corrections and things that happen. And I think for me, I just, in my mind and in my heart, I know that if I put in a really good, honest effort every single day and work my ass off and leave everything on the field and just know that I did my best and I stayed true to my core values, my integrity, and treated people properly, things are going to work out. And you know what, Angela? They always have.
hmm. That's a really good thing. Just stay true to your core values, and yeah, things start to go where you want them to go. So, where do you see this going? What's your goals with all of this, Tom, in the next 5 to 10 years?
I'm doubling down. I'm just I'm not slowing down. Like I look at my life right now. My kids are grown. I have two kids. They're 26 and 24. They're both out of the house doing really well. They're grown. My wife and I are in a really good place. And, I have successful businesses and real estate and I don't have to, but I want to grow. I want to I want to extend myself to limits that I never thought I was even capable of. I just do. I can't. I wake up super early every day, and I can't wait to jump into all of the things that I have in front of me. It's just something that I feel like having this internal drive to be the best version of myself. I know that sounds really cliche, but to push past the limitations of what it is that I think I'm capable of is what motivates me.
Well, I'm fired up. If you're listening to this, I bet you're fired up too. I'm like, I want
No,
to go do a whole bunch
can't
of
help
stuff.
it.
I'm like, what do we got to do?
I look at it and I'll put it a different way.
I love it.
I realize that there's a limited time that we have on this earth. And looking at where I am in my life, where I am at my age, I feel like I have a real opportunity to do something special with the second half of my life and enjoy it by chasing things that I know I can accomplish, as opposed to just saying, hey, you know what? Just be satisfied where you're at with what you have and what you've already done, and just ride off into the sunset and make it nice and easy for yourself. That doesn't motivate me. That doesn't excite me. So I look at it as I need to increase the pace because there's limited time that we all have on this earth. And I want to take advantage of every second, every day.
That's cool. I love that. So touching on something that just kind of came to mind as we went through this, you do have a family and you got an amazing, wife and kids and good relationship, and you built this business while you were having a family. A lot of times people ask, and I'm not an expert on this because I don't have a family, how do you balance? And what is your opinions on balance with family and business? And, just take that away.
Angela, that's one of the toughest things about being, like, if there's anybody listening to this that's a business owner that is raising a family and is in the middle of sports and coaching and how present you can or cannot be, I could tell you that I wish I had a chance to do it over again. I would have done a lot of things differently. But the key is you have to make choices. You have a choice every day as to where and how you're present. So you have a need to be present in your job and do a certain amount of work because that's what it requires. But you also have a need to be present for your family because they require your presence. And what I would have done differently is I would have taken that advice and realized that when you're at work, focus on your work and go all in. And when you're at home, focus on being home and stop worrying about what might be happening at work, what you need to handle, what you need to do. Because there were times when I wasn't present. I was home, but I wasn't home. My kids were there, but I wasn't there.
Right.
I was there, but I wasn't there. And that's the one thing that I regret that I would have done differently is you can work hard and play hard. There's no reason why you can't. But you have to be able to compartmentalize and put your mind into what it is at the time, because when you blend the two, something gives. And your kids, like my son said recently to me, he's like, because my wife mentioned this concept, like we would be at, I'll give you an example. We'd be at like Disney and I'd be taking phone calls where they'd be on rides and I'd be like, oh, I'm going to skip this one, guys. I'm going to, I had to go to the bathroom, whatever. Right. My son said, he's like, Dad, I never noticed anything. Like, I was never like, oh, why is Dad not hanging out with us? Or why is Dad not playing with us? He's like, I never noticed anything growing up that you weren't there for us, but I did. And my wife did.
Right. Interesting. So what would you have done differently? Just be more present when you're there and be more.
Yeah. I think that there is a need to, and I'll just say this, put your phone away. Put your phone away and just say, you know what, for the next 2 hours, I'm going to do something with my family and I'm going to put my phone away. I'm going to turn it off. And, the other thing too is real quick, I didn't have as many, my team wasn't the same as it should have been. And I learned a lesson that I would have built better players around me to absorb business issues so that I didn't have to when I was home. That's another really critical piece that I would have done differently, as I would have assembled the better cast and put less stress on me so that I didn't have to be on the field playing the game the whole time. And when I came off the field, we were still playing the game. I had players doing playing at a high level, and I didn't have to be on the field. And that's a huge, huge piece of advice, is to try to, there's a lot of one-man show businesses out there. I know it's difficult, but try, even if you got virtual assistants or some way to get some additional help, it makes a difference.
More, yeah. Surround yourself with people that can help you faster.
Always.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. In wrapping up, I always ask 3 final questions, and then anything that we didn't touch on that you think would be really impactful for our listeners. So first and final question is, if someone's looking for their purpose, what's one sentence you would say that could help them find it?
Understand what's most important to you, and then go after it with all your heart.
Cool. I like that. Number 2 question, what's a favorite quote and why?
I have a lot of quotes that I love, but I think my favorite quote, and it's something that I say every single day, and it's actually right behind me. So there's a photo that's behind me, and it's Jeremiah 29, verse 11. And it's God saying, I have plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans for hope and a future. And that quote is something that puts me at peace every day, because I truly believe that no matter what happens in my life, people coming after me, people trying to sue me, people trying to steal money from me, employees that have betrayed me, and things that you don't expect that happens. There's adversity that's going to happen. I still know that I'm going to prosper. I know there's hope. I know that there's a future. So that's something that I feel really good about every day. And I actually remind myself every day of that quote.
I love that. That's a good quote. And third and final question is, what's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone?
That's a tough one. I think I would say respected father, leader, and husband.
Cool. Love it. So you run into someone in a coffee shop. They're like, hey, Tom, I love that. Working on the balance thing, working on the compartment, you know what I mean? All that stuff. I can't even say the word. It's all good. But working on all of that stuff, what's something we didn't touch on today that you think would be really impactful for our listeners?
I'll tell you, the one thing that we didn't touch on that has really made a huge difference for me in my life is really developing habits that are uncompromised, that are uncompromising. There are mandatory things that I do every single day that have raised the standards in my life to a place that doesn't allow me to compromise. So, and I don't need to get into all of the habits, but they're habits of getting up at a certain time, eating a certain diet, working out a certain amount, hydrating, prayer, meditation. These are paramount to my peace in my core and my success. Having the right habits that are uncompromised, unfathomable. There's no option not to do it every day.
So let's touch on that for a little bit. Yes, because I agree, habits are amazing. A lot of people would like to have habits. They have a hard time building them. What are some tips, as you thought of, like, how have you built the habits? What are some things that you think, would help people develop those habits that maybe struggle with habits?
Yeah, I'll tell you that that's a great question, and the answer, and like, this is what has not only helped me, but it's helped other people that I've coached. And I said this before, you have to know what you want. You have to know what your goals are. What are you working towards? How do you see yourself? What weight do you want to be? How much money do you want to make? What's your vision for your life? I'm going to be 57 this year. And I'll tell you like an amazing story that like literally just happened like last week. I dropped my my headphones my AirPods on the floor, and I went to go pick them up, and I noticed it in the corner of my eye that my wedding album was sitting like kind of underneath like this shelf. And I was like, wow, I haven't seen that thing in such a long time. So I just opened it up, and the page that I opened up was a photo of me on my wedding day. And I was like, I laughed because you're talking, it's like almost 30 years ago, right? I got married in 1996. And you know what the crazy thing is? When I looked at that photo of me at 28 years old, that's how I see myself. I see myself as I was when I was 28. I don't see myself as a 57-year-old old man or a 60-year-old man or an 80-year-old man. I don't see myself in any other way than that picture right there. And that's what I'm striving for. I'm striving to be the same weight, look the same, feel the same, have the same energy, have the same enthusiasm for my life. That dawned on me. I'm not making this up. I wasn't planning to tell you this story. That's the vision that I have. And because of that, because I know that's what I want, my habits fall in line with that vision. Because I have to eat a certain way. I have to get up at a certain time. I have to do certain things in order to keep myself on track to that vision.
Wow, that's really cool. That makes sense. What do you really want? And then your habits align with who you are, who you want to be.
Absolutely.
That makes total sense. And I think, including myself, like I've been working on that. Like, what do you want? It's like Think and Grow Rich. What do you want? It's like, I don't know.
But I think a lot of people aren't really true to understanding what it is that they really want. And there's this, Ed talks about this all the time. Ed Milet talks about how authenticity, truth and congruency, basically authenticity, vibrates at the highest frequency. So what do you want in your authentic self? What's your truth? What's congruent to you? Where do you see yourself? Where do you want to go? When you can get in touch with that piece, you're going to do things that you never imagined that you could do, but you have to know what it is.
Wow, so good. I love it. Well, guys, this was awesome. I'm sure you got lots of gold out of this. Make sure to share it. Even just the last little bit was amazing. Make sure your habits are in congruency to who you are. Well, they will be. They just are. So who are you and who do you want to be? And your habits will follow. So guys, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, share this. We'll have all of Tom's information in the show notes, his podcast, all that good stuff. Check it out. It's so good. I was just looking at it. It's in the top 1.5% in the global like world of podcasts, which is pretty freaking cool. So congratulations for that. Guys, let's go out there. Let's change the world one starfish or one person at a time. If we can change one life at a time together, we can change the world. Thanks for being on, Tom.
I love it. Thanks for having me. You're the best. Big fan. Biggest fan right here.